We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got people still coming in. Sarah Williamson and Joe just called, and they're hung up behind that traffic that Floyd's family got behind or were nearly involved with in Rockford a while ago. I guess that was them ambulances that come by here a while ago. 2 of them come by here flying, and there's been a terrible accident up there. I wouldn't actually call it an accident. Floyd family was telling me they passed them, curve and every other way, running about 100 miles an hour going down the road and run into 2 more people. And passing on the hill up near Rockford. Is it this side of Rockford or the other side? So, Lord, we just a brief silent prayer for those people there that was in that accident. One of them laying on the side of the road. I think that may be the one that run them over. We'll just pray for them all. Thank you all. I saw Johnny Cash made a movie with June Carter, and every time he'd pass a wreck or something, he'd jump out of the car, run down through there and put his hand on them. He was a preacher, and he would pray for them. He went by the Apostle E.L. You remember the Apostle E.L.? And he would go down and pray for him, you know. And the policeman was trying to get him to quit, and he was kicking him. He wasn't through praying yet, you know. So we'll pray for them people and pray to God that, y'all, this is just quite an honor to stand here tonight and have y'all in the Southern Cultural Center. Quite a few for the first time that they've been here. And so thank you for coming and helping kick off this inaugural Lee Jackson supper tonight. So thank you very much. And also, it just tells you about our Southern people and family. I see Floyd's family here, and my part of my family over here with the Henderson and Michael, my grandson and son, and Miss Annette over there, and just on and on and on. The family in here, you know. Old friends from school like Charles Collier, commander up in Elliott City, Brother Johnny. We're all family. That's what this place is about, is family. And we talked a little bit about that Thursday night. And I just grateful to stand before you and just say those few words. But I'd like to call on Ronnie Atkins to come up. And he's done a lot of work on Grave Finder, and he's going to give you all some good information on finding graves of your Confederate ancestors. Ronnie is a patriot. He has put more flags on Memorial Day and all days, all over this country, just about it. He's a workhorse. Let's give him a big hand.
Let me get back to where I'm supposed to be on this phone here. Give me just a second. Anyway, I asked Mike if I could speak to everybody for just a minute. And so first of all, I have a question for everybody. How many people in this crowd are aware that the Sons of Confederate Veterans has a grave registry site that you can go to and check out if your relatives or if they're in the system or if their cemeteries in the system or whatever? How many people are aware of that? All right, just a few. The website is CGR for Confederate Grave Registry .scv for Sons of Confederate Veterans .org, and you go there, and of course nobody's going to be able to see what's on my phone here, but a little box pops up, and in the box it's got name, ordinal, state, type, AKA. The only information you need is when it goes to the state, click on Alabama, and at the very bottom, cemetery. Once you click on Alabama and you click on cemetery, the counties will come up in order, starting with the Tauga, and then it goes in order from there. And so you can go through county by county and see if your relative's cemetery is in there. And if it is, click on that cemetery and then see if your relative is registered. And it's very simple. If your relative is not on the system, in the very top left-hand corner of the page, there's a thing that says download form. And you download the form and just fill the form out. It's got directions and everything on it, and you put your relative on there, and then you send it, you email it to the directions right there on the page, and so you can do that yourself. And as of right now, we have 191,212 veterans in 25,175 cemeteries in 49 states and 17 countries.
So, Ron, this could be for our members in other states. We have members in Tennessee, Georgia, and other places. Florida.
Yes, all over. You click on your state, and it's just like Alabama. All the counties will be in alphabetical order, and you scroll through there and see if your relative sent one. If you're sick. Yes, and look, if the internet's just not your thing, I've got forms back there with me tonight. You can get one from me. You can fill the form out, and if you email it to me, I'll go about the process of putting it into the system for you. And I know you may not all have a pen, but if you got your phone, I'm going to give you my email address real quick. And like I said, you can email it to me. The first three letters are Sierra Foxtrot Charlie, SFC, ADKINS, the number 50 at gmail.com. And I assure you that 191,000 veterans that we've got in the system, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Yes, sir.
You need to repeat that email address.
Okay, I was a little bit fast. Sierra Foxtrot Charlie for SFC, ADKINS, the number 50 at gmail.com. And that's it. I just wanted to let people know that program is out there, and we want all the graves, all the veterans that we can get, okay? Thank you.
Brother John is going to come up and speak to us in a minute, and he's going to speak in regular form. We're just going to give you some good information and speak and about the reverence we have for Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson. And then we're going to take a little short break and have the drawings. Everybody should have a ticket. If you don't, Ricky will get you one. And we're going to draw for our door prizes. And then Brother John's going to come back up and get on the stump and talk. So, and we're so honored to have his wife here tonight too. And I know she hadn't been to the center, and I don't know if she's been to one of our programs before. Jeannie, is it? I'm going to tell you a little bit about John. I know a good little bit about him, but John Killian was born and raised in the Wyam, how you pronounce that, John? Yeah, of Birmingham. And Jeb Leslie's in, he lives up in Birmingham. Wife Jenny, retired a school teacher. Son John, daughter Sarah News, anchor on NBC 13. Is that how you ended, Jenny? Is that how you ended up on TV?
No, I'm on the station.
Oh, okay. All right. Y'all in competition? All right. 4 grandchildren. 47 years as a Baptist preacher. Now director of Fayette County Baptist Association. 7-time chaplain, General Military Order of the Stars and Bars. Awarded the Lee Chalice by MOS&B. 3 times winner of the oratory contest at the National SCB meeting. 3 times in a row or 3 times, John? Did you retire undefeated? Well, let's give him a hand on that then. And I'm going to tell you, he's been a devoted Southerner and patriot forever. And I'll have to say, he's been a good friend, kind to my family, kind to me. He ain't never told me no yet, so God bless you.
I do want to say, I never cease to be amazed at Mike Horton and the leadership in building this building. Is this not a great building? I don't know what else to talk about. When you go in a building like this, you want to talk about General Lee, General Forrest, General Jackson, and all the great men and the great ancestors that we have. And it's just an honor to be here. The only person that I like better than Mike Horton is Caleb Horton, and I'm glad Caleb's here today. But it's so good to see so many friends here. Some of you I have not seen in some years, but it's an honor to be with you on this evening. Former Samford University President Andrew Westmoreland is known for saying, "We rest under trees that someone else planted." As lovers of our heritage, you don't need explanation. You well understand that which we owe our ancestors. One person to whom we owe a lot was an Indian guide named Sacagawea. Sacagawea was born to a Shoshone tribe known as the Salmon Eaters. At age 13, Sacagawea was sold into a forced marriage to a man from the Snake tribe. This young girl had known a rough life. But then two white men came through, and a trader suggested this young girl as the guide. Soon these men, native to the east, they thought they'd found every shortcut, but they followed Sacagawea, and she led them all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And what could have been miserable and difficult travel became adventuresome trip where Lewis and Clark saw the amazing natural sights and saw stories comparable to that which Marco Polo said when he came back and told the Italians what he had seen in China, and they told him they knew he had lied. Nobody could have ever seen so much. What could have been an arduous and dangerous mission became a historic trip yielding great progress. Why so? Well, Lewis and Clark were traveling through territory over which they had never been. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark were traveling in an unknown wilderness. But with Sacagawea, the Lewis and Clark expedition gained direction and they could find their way. You see, Lewis and Clark were charting a region unknown to them. They had no idea where they were. If I were to tell you, let's leave here and go to Prattville, probably everybody here would know at least the general direction to go. If you said, let's all go to Rockford, I think a lot of you would know which way to go. If I were to say, let's all go to Birmingham, you'd ask me if I was crazy. But nonetheless, we know what it is. But I want you to think about this. William and Clark were traveling in an area they didn't have a name for. They didn't know anything about it. But with Sacagawea, they gained direction. They could find their way. You see, Lewis and Clark were traveling in a region unknown to them. But their guide was someone who had been through that area, who knew where to travel. That was unknown territory for the explorers. Like the explorers of Lewis and Clark's day, we face new challenges. Our generation grew up, and I look around and I see people, some of you as old as I am, probably nobody here as old as Tyrone, but you get with the point. But we all grew up being told that Robert E. Lee was a man of character and self-sacrifice. We've learned of the bravery of these men who charged the ridge at the breastworks and starved, and who charged the hill at Gettysburg and who starved in northern prisons. But here we are in uncharted territory. Our heritage is under attack. You know, I can remember discussions of, well, they may take the flag down from the Capitol, but they'll never touch monuments. Think again. We're seeing challenges like we've never seen before. We're changing army bases because they happen to be Confederates, even if they had also served faithfully in the United States Army. They accomplished what the politically correct and the woke crowd consider the unpardonable sin. They were Confederates. So we're in a culture, as warned about by the prophet Isaiah, woe unto them that call evil good, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Today, the memory of the Confederacy, we see it as sweet, but the public is calling it bitter. Are we facing tough times as Southerners? Are Christian values facing eradication in the next generation? Are the constitutional principles of our forebears to be washed away in the sea of social progressivism and economic socialism? You say, boy, we've never seen times like this. Well, let me remind you of a time even before our fathers were born. In April 1865, General Robert Edward Lee trusted the men with whom he had attended West Point, believing that the terms of surrender would be honored. But what Lee did not realize that the New England radicals would desire, as Tennessee Reconstruction Governor Brownlow advocated, to exterminate the Southern race. Do you realize he even said that? Let's exterminate Southerners? Our principles were pushed into hiding, and our values were mocked. Our education system was immediately overrun with liberal Unitarianism, while our state governments were guided by carpetbaggers, while our wealth was confiscated by invaders. Times were ever so bleak. How did our forebears survive? How did our principles survive? Why are we still here to honor those principles? As we face our challenges today, we may go where nobody's ever gone, like Lewis and Clark, who learned from one who had been where they had not. Even so, we can marvel at the leadership of Robert Edward Lee. He's been where we are today. Lee faced those days with victory, and Lee finished his course having kept the faith and fought a good fight. From the life of Lee in the days following the war, we learn how to face a culture closing in on us with great opposition. Friends, I can forgive Yankees for the war. What I can't forgive them for is Reconstruction, the darkest days in our American history. But Robert Edward Lee survived those days. How do we survive in a day that's hostile to our values? I want you to learn several thoughts tonight, some principles, some memories about General Lee. First of all, General Lee faced Reconstruction, but he never repudiated the cause. General Lee really understood the reason for the formation of the Confederate States of America. In a post-war interview with British Lord Acton, who said that Robert E. Lee was the man and the voice for the Confederacy, he said, "The consolidation of our states into one vast republic." I saw an organization recently, a conservative organization, with a slogan that says, "Make America states again." I think whoever came up with that slogan knows something about where we're coming from. But Lee referred to that Union cause as a consolidation of states into one vast republic. When Lord Acton came to Virginia to write a history of the war, he called Lee the true voice of the South. In 1868, the Federals wanted to make a strong case against Jefferson Davis, accusing Davis of treason. In the case, General Lee was called to testify before a Senate panel. Every effort was made to put Lee into the position of stating that he had only acted as a military man and under the direction of President Davis. Had Lee turned state's evidence, life would have been much easier for Lee, but it would have meant imprisonment for President Davis, who had also faced 2 years in prison at Fortress Monroe. But instead, General Lee dug in with the answer, "I'm responsible for what I did, and I cannot now recall any important movement I made, which I would not have made had I acted entirely on my own responsibility." Late in life, Lee was president of Washington College, now known as Washington and Lee University. Maybe months before his death, a young student described himself as impatient to compensate for the time, as he said, lost in the Confederate Army. General Lee uncharacteristically snapped at the young man, and listen to what General Lee said. "However long you live and whatever you accomplish, you'll find that the time spent in the Confederate Army was the most profitable time that you ever spent in your entire life." So number one, General Lee never repudiated the cause. Secondly, Lee revered these United States as the country was intended. Notice the statement that Lee opposed a redefinition of the principles of states' rights. Lee had studied at West Point, And he learned at West Point, at the United States Military Academy, he learned state sovereignty. Lee opposed secession initially, but when Virginia seceded, Lee understood that he was first of all a Virginian and then an American. Lee believed in the principles of our founding fathers. Lee believed in the United States Constitution, and while Lee opposed the direction of the Union under the control of the radicals of this day, Lee revered the Constitution and the original intent of the framers of the Constitution. Please hear what I'm saying, the original intent. For that reason, General Lee could encourage his soldiers that just as they had been good soldiers, now be good citizens. He honestly thought that he was dealing with honorable men on the other side. Our country, for that reason, he can encourage them. Our country has remained free due to the United States Constitution. Can you imagine if we didn't have the Constitution, what the big government activists would do? Can you imagine how our freedom would be just bartered away so easily? Those individuals who came together representing the states possessed the wisdom of history, founded upon a belief in the God of the Bible. The principles of our fathers are the principles that we need today, and General Lee saw that wisdom. Remember that many Confederates led the country. Some even went to serve the king of Romania, the Khedive of Egypt, and the emperor of Korea. While whole contingents of Confederates had settled in Brazil with great numbers in Mexico, General Lee openly discouraged moving abroad. But he encouraged the Confederates to stay and rebuild the South. Appealing to true patriotism, Lee spoke of how the same man, George Washington, had fought as a soldier for Britain in favor of liberty, then took up arms against the crown in favor of liberty. Lee urged the men to be good Americans and to make their best in defending the country. Since that time, Southerners have always been the first to stand to defend these United States. We honor our World War II veterans. We honor our Vietnam veterans, while others will disdain them. The South was never approval of flag burning and spitting on soldiers, never part of trashing our country to the rest of the world. And such is the legacy of Robert E. Lee. But learn a third memory of General Lee during Reconstruction. He was wise enough to be practical. General Lee could have refused to ever support the government to which he had surrendered. Lee could have moved west and kept up the war. If you ever wish to chasten General Lee for surrendering at Appomattox, I beg you to consider the plight of his Army of Virginia. Men were starving. Men were shoeless, often without weapons, and living with death staring them in the face. And at their surrender, our men were severely outnumbered and sorely outmatched. But General Lee met with General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse and worked to get the best terms of surrender. Lee's men took home their rifles and horses. Lee never quit trying to work out for the best of his people. Now, Caleb and I were just talking about this before the event tonight. I hope I don't cross any of you on this, but if I do, well, you know, Mike just won't call me back. That's all I know to say. But in 1868, the Republican Party nominated Ulysses S. Grant for president. Now, let me just say, I've been county chairman of my Republican Party. I've been on the state Republican Executive Committee for years. I've spoken all over the state at Republican meetings, but I am also not blind to where our heritage really exists. They use the term rhinos. Well, let me tell you, the truth is, we're the rhinos. We really are. You say, why are we the rhinos? Because our heart never was with the founders of the Republican Party. What we really would have been was old South Democrats. Now, I hadn't seen one in about the last 30 years, but you can't find too many of them anymore. We do what we have to do to salvage our country and to salvage our freedom. But the Republican Party nominated Ulysses S. Grant for president. Former Union General Rosecrans met with General Lee and begged his support for the Democratic nominee, Governor Horatio Seymour of New York. Seymour had been anti-Lincoln, and Lee saw him as a favorable alternative. Yes, Rosecrans had been a Union general, and yes, Seymour had supported the war effort. But Lee urged the old Confederates to be politically active and support the best option they could find. In a meeting of Southern leaders, Lee and others recognized the federal system, but they would not cower to unreasonable demands. The practical application of Lee's citizenship kept Reconstruction from being even worse, and he set the stage for better days in the South. Let's learn, fourthly, what did Lee do during Reconstruction, and what guides us today? Lee invested in the next generation. Immediately after the war, companies sought the name of Robert Edward Lee for their influence. But General Lee thought it wrong to cash in on his name. Washington College, named for President George Washington and General George Washington, was low in enrollment and struggling to survive. General Lee gave his heart to revive that wonderful school. Lee established one rule, that the men would be gentlemen, feeling that if the men were to be general, they wouldn't have to have precise rules on guiding their school. General Lee turned down great offers of wealth. He turned down opportunities of fame, all to spend his final years training young men who would rebuild the South. Now, please hear me out on this emphasis. Every good principle in which we hold will be lost to our generation if we don't focus on the next generation. I plead with you to get your children and your grandchildren in a good Bible-believing church. You say, well, listen, we're not here for church tonight. Well, for the next 1 minute we are. You need to get your child and your grandchild in a place where they hear sound principles. Otherwise, they'll be lost in this generation. Homeschooling. Homeschooling and Christian schools are a good option. At least show interest in that which your child is learning at school. Let them know what's true. Teach them right principles. It's all important that we train the next generation, or the principles that we stand for in this place will be lost if we don't talk to our children and grandchildren. Show interest in what your child's learning at school. Bring them to events. Take them to historical sites. Tell them about General Lee and General Jackson and General Forrest and all the great men. Tell them what the law and what the war was really about. Hey, tell them to read what John Taylor says. That's some good stuff. But talk about that to your children. Bring them to events where heritage is honored and the traditions are highly appreciated. If you know good history, honor your services to a school. Encourage the youth of your church and promote any effort to reach out to young people. Talk with your children, grandchildren, nephews, and nieces. General Lee could have lavished upon himself, but he gave himself to the next generation. There's a fifth principle I want you to see about General Lee. General Lee was a peacemaker. General Lee had personally suffered because of the war. The Federals had taken the Lee house and property known as Arlington. Other Confederates were bitter. General Jubal Early was known to say, "I hate a Yankee this day, worse than I've ever done, and my hatred is increasing every day." Sounds like Caleb to me. I don't know. By the way, if you're a Baptist and your church takes a Lottie Moon Christmas offering, I just want you to realize Lottie Moon was a diehard Confederate. She said she'd rather die as live under the rule of the Confederates. And I hope, sort of tell that this year when you take the Lottie Moon offering. Give some money and put in there, that's an effort because she was a good Confederate. But contrast the bitterness with so many with General Lee, who spent his days making peace. When Washington College students harassed a Union veteran, they had to leave school. When a student spoke scathing words of General Grant, Lee declared, "Sir, if you ever presume to speak disrespectfully of General Grant in my presence, either you or I will sever his connection with this university." A Confederate widow took Lee out in the yard. Lee used to ride his horse around town, and he would visit people for his church, visit those who were sick. He was like Michael was talking about. He'd pray with them. General Lee was talking to a woman and said, "I want you to see something, General." She took him out to see a tree in her yard that had been shot up by the Yankees. She spoke of the beauty of the tree and how now it was an eyesore. She said, "General, What do you think about that? Look at that tree. It's a disaster now. What do you think I ought to do about that? She said, Madam, cut it down and forget it. In 1869, just months before his death, General Lee visited Washington, D.C., and he went by the White House to visit with then President Grant. For 15 minutes, Lee and Grant visited privately, and the substance of their conversation was never revealed. But one matter is certain. The Southern people were bitter and would have led toward violence and guerrilla warfare for just a little bit. But the Southern people listened to General Lee and kept peace. Rather than act out with violence and rebellion, the South followed General Lee's wisdom and used influence and political strength to regain a standing and rebuild the South and to rebuild some degree of states' rights in the late 1800s. Our country and our Southland are better because of Lee's wisdom. And then I want to close with this. How else did General Lee face the difficult days? He lived with eternity in view. After the war, a young Confederate veteran, Edward Clifford Gordon, worked with Lee to save money to attend seminary to study for the ministry. As his personal assistant, Gordon dealt with Lee every day, and he remarked that Lee was a devout man who didn't preach, but whose every action was a good example. A man who studied his Bible and was usually found in some other church if his own church had no services on a given Sunday. Gordon went on to say, intellectually he was cast in a gigantic mold. Naturally, he was possessed of strong passions. He loved excitement, particularly the excitement of war. He loved grandeur, but all these appetites and powers were brought under the control of his judgment and subservient to his Christian faith. Lee brought in Bible preachers, soul-saving preachers, to come to in the pulpit at Washington College. He would invite them in. He would plead with the young men to be certain they were Christians. The general prayed that his students would trust Christ and, as he said, become real Christians. The general's wife, Mary, wrote of his faith and wrote of her husband, a more upright and conscientious Christian never lived than her own husband, Robert E. Lee. Lee worked to rebuild the South, to train young men, to right any wrong. But Robert Edward Lee knew that this life is just a dressing room for eternity. General Lee's faith was in the Lord Jesus Christ. Today you can wear a uniform like Lee. You can stand for the principles of Lee. But if you want to enter heaven like Lee, you need to put your faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, who died for sinners, who rose from the grave to guarantee everlasting life. Lee impacted time, but he made the most difference because he looked with eternity in view. And I pray that we can face these challenges knowing what really lasts is that which is eternal. Thank you, and God bless you.
When I was picking up our supper tonight at Champ's Barbecue, Zach, good Christian people, Zach says, I really don't understand why they're tearing down our monuments. He said, the South was right. And I said, well, that's why they're tearing them down. Washington, D.C., as far as that goes, that little courthouse right down the road, and a bigger one right down there in Montgomery on Gold Hill, doing right is the last thing on their mind. And if they do right, it'll be because they're made to. That's exactly right. If you're waiting on them to do it, good luck, But that was great, John. We look forward to the conclusion. You ladies ready for the drawing? We got a little of everything. What kind of announcement you want? You got the tickets, Eddie? I'll do the shaking, and you do the talking.
Okay. Everybody got a ticket? Everybody got a blue ticket? All right. You're going to be disappointed now if you ain't got one. All right. Okay, what we've got first is a line of items that people have, Floyd and others have donated. And what we'll do is we'll have call-offs and look for the last three letters. Do you bring your glasses? It's pitiful. This is pitiful. Okay, and, oh, sorry.
One thing, Champ donated supper for two. That's one of the prizes.
Oh,
That's what
oh.
we recognize Champ. Y'all all patronize Champ.
Oh, yeah, champ, you can't beat champ. So that's one of the, items? Okay. All right, the way we do it is, as we call it off, you go up and you got your pick of the whole table. And then we'll just keep rolling the numbers, everybody going up, picking out what's left, okay? That's the way we'll do that. All right? Here's the first one. Last three numbers, 776.
We have it. That's ours. Do we win?
776.
That's it.
Hey, you tell me that ain't something.
That's
Telling us
something.
right now. Huh?
Am I eligible to win?
Yeah, you are the winner.
Okay.
Go up and get
You
that
go
2
get it.
seconds.
You go get it.
Ma'am, you can go up and pick mine. You can go up and pick mine. No. It's everything that's on that table, right where Anita is.
There you go. You might get another bird.
Brother John, get them and bring them up to it.
Oh,
You go right on up. Now, they'll tell you all the gifts are, and you pick your
she'll go
best.
get it. You go get it.
Pick what you got first choice.
Huh?
First choice.
Man, Lord of mercy. Biden will want to get the FBI down here to check
We have
us
to get
out.
James Comey.
Huh? James Comey. We have to get James Comey down here.
Investigate this guy.
All right, she's up there now after. Hey, Anita. Yeah, all the fruit and stuff's free, right?
Yeah, the fruit and stuff.
The fruit-
No,
the
it's
fruit's
part of the
free.
drawing. It's part of the drawing, but they get choice. They get.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right.
Take it, that's it.
Here we go. Number two. 757. 757. All right, there we go. Now we're gonna get it rolling a little bit here now. So stay awake. We're gonna go rolling. 775. That's got to be your wife. 775. 775. Great.
Ms. Johnson.
726. 726. All right, Brent. 753. 753. Ooh, atta girl. 740. 740. 740. Okay, Dana.
Brian, go pick it up.
Brian, go up and get him.
Go get it, boy.
751. 751. Oh, okay, great. 741. Okay, go up this time. You're Dana. 764. 764. All right, Mike. 736. 736. Okay, DT. 760. Okay, 760. All right, Paul. 750. All right, Cliff. 749. All right, Bubba. 734. 734. All right. Do we need to let it get caught up or?
Way to go, Bob. Way to go.
They still got plenty of stuff up there?
Yeah.
All right. 763. 763. Okay, Ron. 779. Nita. All right, Anita.
Give me some of them nanners.
Yeah, get them nanners. 777. 777. All right, Gary.
Where'd it go, Gary? There.
745. All right, Mike.
All right, boy.
Ain't gonna be no basketball hoop up there. 772. 772. All right, Mr. Muscover. 754. Okay, ma'am. Seven, 6, 2. All right, get up there and find that, buddy. Yeah, there you go. There you go. 7, 6, 8. All right, Wade.
Ask your mama what she wants up there.
Yeah, find out what your mama wants up there. 7, 4, 4. Okay, Caleb. 7, 4, 7. All right. 7, 6, 6. All right, Tina. 7, 8, 5. 7, 8, 5. Okay, Cindy. 7, 5, 2. 7, 5, 2. Now look, Miss Lassie, he got you carrots. He bought you carrots. Seven, 4, 6. 7, 4, 6. All right, go. Got it.
Hey, we had a couple of flags back there. One of them was the General Lee headquarters flag, and the other was a stainless banner from General Jackson's funeral. So I don't know if they're still back there or not.
7, 5, 6. 7, 5, 6. 7, 5, 6. Oh, there you are, ma'am. 7, 8, 3. 7, 8, 3. All right, Peggy. How much we got left?
How many flags you got left, Dave?
How many? 13? 13? 7, 3, 8. 7, 3, 8. 7, 3, 8. Go up there, young man. 7, 6, 5. Hey, there's Joe.
Sarah. They've been behind that wreck up there.
Oh, man. Was there a wreck up there?
That's one I was telling about, that they found alongside the road
Oh.
that Floyd and them people was,
Oh, I didn't know that.
that's what I was on first.
7, 7, 8. 7, 7, 8. All right, Ricky. 7, 8, 0. 7, 8, 0. 7, 8, 0. All right, Heather. 7, 5, 8. 7, 5, 8. 7, 5, 8. Got another one? 7, 5, 9. 7, 5, 9. All right, Cale. Pat, what's going on? What's wrong? What's your number? What's your number? 739.
It's gotta be.
Better be. Ricky's gonna be in
We had a lot
trouble.
of prizes.
743. All right, Albert. 770. 770. 770.
What's
Oh, she's got it. Send it.
She said they gone.
Oh, is that it?
I hope I get something. We'll give the flag if they're all gone.
What was your number? What was
Hey,
your
we
number?
ain't got many people that wasn't winners.
Yeah, there's only about 5 in there.
You called out 741, that was Dana. Then you called out 743, and I'm 742.
We got about
Sorry.
7, 8 left.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. Well,
All right, let me, what is it?
got 3 more.
Oh, we got 3 more.
Got 3 packs of tomatoes, man. That's a good
Oh,
price.
okay, here we go. 742. 742. Yes, you got the last one.
Bam, there you go. All right.
All right. No, I trust you. I trust you.
We got 2 more packs of tomatoes. How many more you got? 2? 2 more.
Oh, I done throwed all the tickets in here now. Dang.
Who didn't win a prize?
Who didn't win one? Okay,
Hey, Miss Mary,
tomatoes right here.
Right here.
Right here.
Lord. She might make a husband made a sandwich, might make Hey, y'all, I'd like to make one other announcement and just ask. We all know a little bit about what's going on with Robert E. Lee's monument. It's up at the museum right now. But it's going to eventually be coming back to Auburn, if I understand right, Johnny. Have we had any Robert E. Lee graduates here? Robert? Rodney, Nancy, Gwen, is any others got? That's just too good, because we're here to honor Robert E. Lee and
Are you talking about Robert E. Lee High School?
Robert
Yeah.
E. Lee High School in Montgomery. They used to be one of the prettiest renditions of Dixie I've heard them play. What was the name of the band director? Johnny Long. Oh, yeah. And, y'all, Joe and Sarah have been through an ordeal to get here tonight, so let's give them a hand.
All right, Miss Sarah.
All right.
All right, got a couple?
What else we got? You
Well-
were talking about them birds, don't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna ask, we placed out on the table, event coming up pretty soon with, Bama Carey. Paul, will you or Cale wanna get up and say something about it? Take a couple seconds too.
All right. Yeah, if you didn't get a flyer and you want one, just see me. The February the 15th, we've got our 10th annual Bama Carey Freedom Conference at the Doster Center in Prattville. It'll start at 8 a.m., doors open, and be there till about 4. We've got several Second Amendment groups will be represented. The Virginia Citizens Defense League, the National Association for Gun Rights, Gun Owners of America, of course, Bama Carey and the Self-Defense Fund, and we'd love to have you.
Good.
We'd love to be there. Y'all
We went-
like it? What day is that?
February 15th,
15th.
Saturday.
Right there after Valentine's.
Yes, sir.
At Prattville.
Good way to remember.
Yep. We went to it last year and they did a really good show up there, really good.
Everybody get a flyer and let you remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Bye bye.
Okay, we got one more item. It's not a draw, it's a giveaway. It's a giveaway. As you're aware, we had 2 events today. This one that we're at to now, and then this morning early, we had our 6th annual pheasant shoot. And it's been a fundraiser we've had for 6 years. And to follow up exactly what Brother Killian was saying, and we're proud of what happened today. I'm really proud of what happened today. We had a full group for the pheasant shoot, 32 people, paying $300, so we brought in $10,000. Now, now we've got some costs that we got to pay for, but hopefully it won't be 15,000. But it's been really good for us. But here's two things that I want to really get to you. One is how important it is to us and the people that's there, because they came from Georgia, they come from Alabama, they come from all over. But the really big thing that I'm so proud of today, that's 32 people shooting. 7 of the 32 were fine Southern young men, younger than 16 years old. Now, we do certain trophy things we give out, as a part of the advertising. The very first, trophy is called the Money Bird. And we release a single pheasant across the battlefield with a long ribbon on him, and everybody hollers, "Money Bird, Money Bird, Money Bird." I happen to be standing there along with our video guy, and a young boy, 12 years old, took 2 shots and dropped that thing right there beside us. 12 years old. And it was $300. And I gave him 3 $100 bills, and that boy had a smile out there. And he took that ribbon and he wrapped it all around him and wore it the rest of the whole day. But the big part of it was how everybody else got around him, patting him on the shoulder and telling him how great this is. And one of the things we've always talked about here at the Southern Cultural Center is exactly what Brother Killian is talking about. If you teach your kids how to hunt, you won't have to hunt him when he gets older. You'll know where he's at. So thank God for that. Thank God for that. Now, so what we have outside in the cooler is about, I think it's probably about 45 pheasants already cleaned and in Ziploc box. There's 2 of them in every bag. Pick one up. There's plenty of Dollar General bags. So pick you out. There's got 2 in each bag. So get whatever you want. Anybody wants them? If you don't want them, take some with them. If somebody else wants them, take it to them. But I think there's probably at least 45, 48, okay? And that's what we didn't kill, or we killed 168 out of 200 is what we killed. But everybody kind of took off because it was late, and I stayed and brought them down here. So please, take them on your way out as you leave. They're out there in the cooler, all right? Thank you, and God bless you. We got him fixed up already.
Already got him fixed up.
Oh, yeah, we got him
Hey,
fixed up.
y'all, I'm gonna tell you, Ed done yeoman's work today, putting the pheasant shoot together, and we need to give him another big hand. He really worked hard. The other thing that before we bring Brother John back, I want to just say something very briefly about our customs, traditions, and our people. Obviously, you're here tonight, you love them. I know a big part of you are members of the Southern Cultural Center, but right there where Gene Sides is sitting back at the table, him or Eddie want to give you an application. And I can see from here that it'll be approved. If you're in this room tonight, that's not going to be a problem. But please consider your customs, your traditions, your family, and if it means that, and obviously it does, join the center. We need you. We need you. And we need one another. And you'll find, and I hope you can feel it here tonight, of the family here. And Bob, we got you an application back there. That was my next door neighbor there. He's been a good one. And his dog and my dog has even made best friends. So, and me and Bob are becoming fast friends. And thank you for coming tonight again, Bob. But that's it. And I know you're going to be excited when we hear Brother John. But don't forget your application when you start out. Get you some information and let's join up and let's work together. God save the South. Brother John.
I want to say amen, because what the South is and the principles of the South must be preserved if there's any hope for anything in this country. Thank you for being here. I do want to say this is the most likable group of people I've been around in a long time. And I don't know when I've enjoyed a night out, except maybe holding my grandson. That's the only thing close to it. And you know what? In a few years, when he's old enough to know what's going on, I want to bring him down here to meet you and to know at least a touch of the feeling we have. All right, let me get my mind clear. You know, I think about Gettysburg. I think about Sherman's raid on Atlanta that some people tried to get President Davis, and I don't blame President Davis. General Lee said we couldn't have had a better leader, and I'll go with that. But I think about if they had turned Forrest loose on Sherman's rear, there are just several things that might have happened, and it could have been that maybe the war might have ended differently. I sat with a group of old-time Baptist preachers for dinner, and we somehow got talking about the war. And they said, well, you will admit Lincoln was a great man. I said, no, I won't admit that. I didn't like the man, don't like him. I think that came down to, I told him if I had a choice between Lincoln and Obama, I'd probably vote for Obama. And he wouldn't vote, yeah. I'd write in Pat Godwin maybe, but we just got to talking about that. And I made the statement, I wish we'd won the war. They said, oh, you don't really mean that. Well, I do. I also recognize the providence of God and the way things are, and I respect where we are, and we move on from there. But you still can't help but imagine what would happen if we had won the war. I want you to let your mind drift. You might even want to close your eyes for a minute and just think about what would happen. The scene is the United Nations General Assembly. The year is 2025. President or delegates from various nations comprising the Security Council of the United Nations. The topic of discussion on hand this day is the current uncooperative status of the Confederate States of America. An Eastern European delegate storms in anger. Don't these Confederates understand that this is now a world community? With their insistence on their own sovereignty, they're a general hindrance to the unifications of all nations under the auspices of a new world order. A delegate from Red China protests. These Confederates from the southern part of North America, they're the only nation to refuse membership in the United Nations. The only government system to refuse to submit to the World Court. They refuse to allow human rights monitors within the confines of their borders. These renegade nations continue to elect leaders like Wallace, Helms, and Maddox. And in recent years, they persisted in electing more of the same ilk. Our sanctions against them have not worked. The very existence of the Confederation of States is a threat to Comrade Castro in Cuba. We're at a loss as to what to do to persuade them how to become a participant in the world community of nations. But the most angry outburst came from the delegate from Zimbabwe. In anger, he compared Southern Americans to the white farmers now being expelled from Zimbabwe so that the people's communes can be organized on what had henceforth been privately owned property. This had been accomplished by military aid from the United States as accomplished by President Barack Obama. This African general let out with an outburst that displayed anger that could no longer be contained as he shouted to the United States Ambassador Bill Ayers. He said, "They are your neighbors. You can do something about this backward nation. They have no national system of education. In Africa, they have never signed the genocide treaty. In Africa, we would have sent troops in by now to demand compliance with the international diversity policy. Time has passed for the United States to lead the way on this international invasion of this backward land called the Confederate States of America." Ambassador Ayers hoped to calm the tense moment, and he pled for ignorance. He said, "My friends, let's give time for sanctions to work." Ayers pledged, "You have to understand where they're coming from. We tried to coexist with them for a time, but they refused to live under the control of a centralized force. We've sought to urge them to nationalize their schools, but amazingly, their literacy rate is among the highest in the world. We sought to present the advantages of nationalized industry, but they continue outproducing us with their so-called free market and private property. These barbarians in the Southern America even refuse to enact a graduated income tax. Our negotiators have pled with these Southerners to allow United Nations monitors on human rights, but their people still buy into these archaic ideas of that marriage is only between a man and a woman. They flat refuse to cross state lines with social planning and authority. And the only times their state governments join together is for national defense. And this brings to the insistence of my friend that we send in troops. Well, forgive me, but this very idea shows your lack of understanding of these Southerners. You see, we sent in troops 150 years ago when they formed this Confederation of States. Our troops outnumbered them greatly, and we had vastly superior military weaponry. We sought to defeat them quickly, but they had the most determined soldiers in the history of humankind. Some compared them to the fearless Celts of old. But after 3 years of conflict, their General Early led a band onto our capital city that brought about a suit for peace. And these Southerners formed their own government, but left most of the authority with their separate states. We've tried to bring about a union between these two countries. They were our best allies in the Great World Wars, but whenever they brought up the subject of union, they began insisting on their outdated Republican form of government, a system where authority rests in the states. We could never compromise our centralized authority, and these people called Confederates will never compromise their so-called states' rights. And ever since this time, they feared a day like this. And they consistently prepared their common defense. No, they whipped us then, and we dare not whip them again. The final word came from a delegate from Chile. This gentleman reminded them of an old story of a sleeping lion best left alone. He warned of growing freedom movements across the globe and reminded them that this system of self-rule and the principles of limited government as proposed by the Confederate States of America had become the model for freedom fighters in Asia, the Middle East, and in Central America. We may bring these Southern Americans sympathy and thereby help them gain support. This narrative is only a glimpse of what could have happened, what could have transpired had Jubal Early's raid on Washington, D.C. been successful. Had Grant given the sword to Lee. Had Lincoln left the Union presidency in shame while Jefferson Davis was hailed as a victorious leader. Yes, had the Confederacy been successful, not only would their own people live under different circumstances, but the entire world would see an example of what true liberty and freedom could present. When the American Revolution ended with the surrender of Cornwallis to Washington, the colonial band played, the world turned upside down. But 80 plus years later, when Richmond fell, Mr. Lincoln insisted on a round of mockery as the band played Dixie. This was a shadow of times to come as the federal republic of our forefathers has been turned on its ears. Yes, I declare to you that had the Southern Confederacy been successful, we'd see a different world indeed. Friends, had the sword of surrender left the hand of that drunkard Grant, I can guarantee you that it'd be a cold day in hell before the BATF agents came knocking down the doors to spray gas on little children. Had it been Jefferson Davis announcing a victory in Richmond, and our southern nation been permanently organized, I can assure you that there'd never be a federal official who would declare an edict telling you business how many and how much you could hire. If it was the starry St. Andrew's cross that flew over our local schools, you'd never find control of the federal government over our education. No lame-bane bureaucrat would ever challenge the idea of Bible reading and prayer in our local schools. You better believe that law enforcement in the southern states would be governed by local policy and not dictated to by some federal judge who doesn't have enough legal sense to try a chicken thief in Elmore County, Alabama. And if the United Nations diversity official came to Mississippi to tell them that marriage is no longer between Adam and Eve, but now must include Adam and Steve, that'd be the last UN official to ever come to the state of Mississippi. If the Confederacy had been successful, I said if the Confederacy had been successful, our children would know that Jefferson Davis was the father of our country. Robert E. Lee was the greatest man who ever lived. And Stonewall Jackson was the 13th apostle. And if you don't like it, you can go back up north with other Yankees, liberals, carpetbaggers, Lincolnites, socialists, and name brains. And lame brains who don't know the difference between horse sense and horseradish. You better know that if our forefathers had been the victors, we could have had the opportunity to make our own decisions. And we could well ignore the advice and counsel of a nickel-nipping, penny-pitching, back-scratching liberal member of the liberal elite, whether of the press or educational establishment. Our official policy would be, we don't give a rip how you do it up north. In the book of the Revelation, we find the saints crying amidst a time of great tribulation. And they cry, how long, oh Lord, how long? Can you cry with me today? How long, oh Lord, how long? Come on, wake up, Jones. How Lord, oh Lord, how long, oh Lord? With the tribulation saints we cry, how long must we endure the attack of our ancestors? The rape of our Southland, the slander of our heroes, and the violation of our principles. Oh, but my friends, this tribulation will not last. Our day is coming, but I may not get there with you. But I've been to the mountaintop, and I've looked over on the other side, and I've seen the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. The South shall rise.
Man, I don't even know how to approach the microphone after that. I'll tell you, if I don't give you chill bumps, and that tells us something, what Brother John is sharing with us there tonight, some semblance of something close to that could happen, and will happen one day, believe it or not. As far off as it seems sometimes, we're going to have our liberty, Southern Christian liberty again. We'll come to Alabama and it will come to the South. We will have it. And what he said about make America states again, make Dixie states again, from my point, and I'll tell you, make it agrarian again, it'll be 2 big steps. We love you all. We love you all. John, we love y'all. You've been with us since we started way back in '99. I don't know when you come down to the park, and what a great time it was, and visited with us here again. And God bless your family, and let's give him another big hand. And his family. I'm going to dismiss us with a short prayer, and then we'll just visit long as we want to and as long as you have time. But, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your blessing in the field today at our bird shoot and our meeting here in the center tonight. We thank you for this roof over our head. We thank you for what it means to us, Lord, to have a place to come, a refuge for our people, to come worship, praise you, Lord, and ask forgiveness. We also tonight, we ask for strength, stiffen our backbone, to take the steps of our fathers and grandfathers that love the Lord and like we do. And we want to be more like them. And just thank you again for sending Brother John and his family into our life and into our meeting tonight. Forgive us where we failed, Lord. Thank you for all the good food and the good time we had tonight. God, everything good flows from you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank y'all.